How did Ormund convince Ulf to betray Rhaenyra? House of the Dragon Season 3 explained. Warning, spoiler warning. Before we begin, this video contains major spoilers for House of the Dragon Season 3 Episode 7 and discusses elements from George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood. We'll be explaining how Ormund Hightower convinced Ulf to betray Rhaenyra, why Ulf became the easiest dragon seed to manipulate, and how this moment changes the future of the Dance of the Dragons. With that said, let's get started. The biggest weapon in Episode 7 wasn't a dragon, it wasn't a sword, it wasn't even an army. It was a conversation. As the episode comes to an end, Lord Ormund Hightower approaches Ulf White with a smile instead of a threat. He doesn't demand loyalty. He doesn't put a sword to Ulf's throat. Instead, he offers him something much more powerful: a future, a title, respect, and perhaps everything Ulf has dreamed about his entire life. The scene lasts only a few moments, but it may become one of the most important conversations in the entire Dance of the Dragons. So, how exactly did Ormund convince Ulf to betray Queen Rhaenyra? The answer begins with one simple fact. Ormund didn't recruit a dragon. He recruited a man, and he understood that man perfectly. To understand why Ulf was so easy to manipulate, we first have to remember where he came from. Unlike Daemon, or Aemond, or even Hugh Hammer, Ulf wasn't raised among nobles. He grew up as a common man. He spent his life drinking in taverns, telling stories about his supposed Targaryen blood, and dreaming about a life he would probably never have. Nobody respected him. Nobody feared him. He was invisible. Then, everything changed. When Rhaenyra called for the dragon seeds, Ulf did what few people believed was possible. He claimed Silverwing. Overnight, the forgotten commoner became one of the most powerful dragon riders in Westeros. But becoming powerful doesn't automatically make someone loyal. Sometimes it simply makes them want even more. That's exactly what Ormund sees. He isn't looking at Ulf as another enemy soldier. He's studying his personality. He notices how Ulf enjoys attention, how he likes being admired, how quickly he embraces his new importance. Unlike some dragon riders who treat their dragons as a solemn responsibility, Ulf enjoys the fame that comes with riding one. He likes people looking at him differently. And Ormund realizes something very important. This isn't a man motivated by duty. He's motivated by recognition. That's why Ormund doesn't try to convince Ulf with politics. He never talks about justice. He never argues over who has the rightful claim to the Iron Throne, because he knows Ulf probably doesn't care. Instead, he offers things Ulf can actually imagine: gold, land, a noble title, a castle, a seat among the great lords of Westeros. To someone born into privilege, those promises might not mean much. But to a man who grew up with nothing, they're almost impossible to ignore. This is where Ormund proves why he's such a dangerous commander. He understands that every person has a weakness. Daemon's weakness is pride. Aegon's weakness is emotion. Criston Cole's weakness is honor. Ulf's weakness is ambition. Instead of trying to break him, Ormund simply feeds the dream Ulf already has. He makes Ulf believe he deserves more. And once someone starts believing that, changing sides becomes much easier. Episode 7 also quietly shows us that Ulf has already started changing. He's no longer acting like the humble man who first claimed Silverwing. He enjoys the celebrations. He enjoys drinking. He enjoys the admiration of everyone around him. Most importantly, he never seems emotionally connected to Rhaenyra's cause. He's fighting beside Team Black, but he isn't fighting for Team Black. There's a huge difference, and Ormund notices it immediately. There's another reason this recruitment is so important. The Greens don't simply need another soldier. They need another dragon. After suffering devastating losses throughout the war, every surviving dragon becomes priceless. Winning Ulf doesn't just give Ormund another ally. It gives him Silverwing, one of the oldest and most experienced dragons still alive. That's worth more than thousands of soldiers. Ormund understands that one dragon can change the outcome of an entire campaign. So, convincing Ulf may be more valuable than winning several battles combined. There's another fascinating detail many viewers may have missed. Ormund never rushes the conversation. He doesn't pressure Ulf into making an immediate decision. Instead, he plants an idea, a seed. He allows Ulf to imagine himself wearing fine clothes, owning castles, being addressed as "my lord." Sometimes, the most effective manipulation isn't forcing someone to make a choice, it's making them believe the choice was theirs all along. That's exactly what Ormund does. Book readers know where this story is heading. Without spoiling every future event, this conversation lays the foundation for one of the most famous betrayals in Fire and Blood, the First Battle of Tumbleton, a battle that completely reshapes the Dance of the Dragons. When dragon riders begin changing sides, the balance of power changes overnight. Armies that looked unstoppable suddenly become vulnerable. Kings lose confidence, queens begin doubting everyone around them, and trust becomes almost impossible. Episode 7 isn't simply teasing Ulf's betrayal, it's setting the stage for one of the greatest turning points in the entire Civil War. Perhaps that's what makes this scene so brilliant. No dragonfire fills the sky, no armies clash, yet the consequences of this quiet conversation may be greater than any battle we've seen so far. Because wars aren't always won with swords. Sometimes they're won by understanding exactly what another person wants. And Ormund Hightower understands Ulf better than Ulf understands himself. There's also a psychological strategy at work. Ormund doesn't ask Ulf to betray Rhaenyra immediately. Instead, he plants a dangerous question in Ulf's mind. What if you're fighting for the wrong side? Once that doubt begins growing, it becomes almost impossible to stop. Every disappointment inside Team Black, every disagreement, every missed reward, only makes Ormund's promises seem more attractive. That's how great manipulators work. They don't force people to change sides overnight. They slowly make them believe that changing sides was their own idea all along. Perhaps that's why this scene is so important. It's not really about Ulf. It's about the future of every dragon seed. If one dragon rider can be persuaded with promises of power, who's to say another can't? Suddenly, Rhaenyra has a much bigger problem than fighting the Greens. She has to wonder whether the people flying beside her today will still be beside her tomorrow. And in a war where dragons decide the outcome, losing trust may be even more dangerous than losing a battle. Because once loyalty can be bought, no one is truly safe. So, how did Ormund convince Ulf to betray Rhaenyra? He didn't use fear. He didn't use force. He used ambition. He saw a man who had spent his entire life dreaming of respect, and he offered to make that dream a reality. Whether those promises are sincere or simply another political trap doesn't matter, because by the time Ulf begins believing them, the damage is already done. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson of Episode 7. Not every battle is fought with dragons. Some are fought with words, with promises, with temptation. And sometimes a single conversation can change the fate of an entire kingdom. So what do you think? Was Ulf always destined to betray Rhaenyra? Or did Ormund Hightower simply find the perfect way to exploit his deepest desires? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more House of the Dragon Explained videos, hidden details, character breakdowns, and Fire and Blood lore.